Take it or leave it, Thompson. 30 years on my ranch, and this is what you've earned. 5 acres of rocks and dirt where nothing'll grow. Frank Harrington's voice boomed across the valley, his expensive boots planted firmly on the hood of his new F-350. The old ranch hand, Bill Thompson, squinted against the Montana sun, his weathered hand gripping the property deed. 5 acres of the rockiest, most useless corner of the Harrington estate. A joke more than a retirement gift? You should see your face. Harrington laughed, slapping his knee. What did you expect? A gold watch and a pension? In this economy? The other ranch hands looked away, embarrassed for their longtime colleague. 3 decades of pre-dawn mornings, broken bones, and missed family dinners, all for this barren patch where even weeds struggled to survive. But there was something in old Bill's eyes. Not defeat, not even anger. I'll take it, he said quietly, folding the paper into his breast pocket. Before you decide if this is just another sad story about the rich getting richer, stick around. You're about to witness how a wealthy man's trash became a poor man's treasure, and how 30 years of patience finally paid off. Bill Thompson had arrived at the Harrington Ranch in spring of 1993, just a young man with calloused hands and empty pockets. Back then, Frank Harrington Sr. ran things, tough but fair. The land was productive, the cattle healthy, and the ranch hands treated with rough respect. But when Frank Jr. inherited everything after his father's passing 10 years ago, things changed. The elder Harrington's promise of taking care of the loyal ones died with him. You need to clear your bunkhouse by the weekend, Harrington said, already turning back toward his truck. Got some college kids coming in. Cheaper labor, you understand. Just business. Bill nodded, 30 years of dignity keeping his spine straight, despite the weight pressing down on his shoulders. At 62, where was he supposed to go? Bet you regret turning down that foreman job at the Wilkinson place back in '08, Harrington called over his shoulder. But loyalty's its own reward, ain't it, Thompson? The truck roared away, leaving Bill standing on what was now his land. 5 acres of sun-scorched earth, where nothing grew but sharp rocks and broken promises. That night, in the bunkhouse he'd called home for 3 decades, Bill pulled out an old leather-bound journal. Inside were detailed notes about the Harrington property. Every spring, every drainage issue, every mineral deposit he'd noticed over 30 years of working the land. You okay, old-timer? Asked Miguel, one of the younger hands who'd been there just 5 years. Been better, Bill admitted, but been worse, too. That corner plot he gave you? Miguel shook his head. It's nothing but trouble. We couldn't even get fence posts more than a few inches into that ground. Bill just nodded, a strange half-smile crossing his face. Some ground doesn't want to be disturbed. I have to ask you something before we continue. Do you believe that patience and knowledge are always rewarded in the end? Type yes or no in the comments. I'm curious what you think about karma in today's world. 3 weeks later, Bill Thompson was living in a used RV he'd parked on his rocky plot. The summer heat was merciless, and his Social Security check barely covered his basic needs. But every morning at dawn, he was out with basic tools: a pick, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow. From the main house half a mile away, Frank Harrington occasionally watched through binoculars, amused by the old man's determination. Look at that fool, he told his wife over breakfast on their sprawling deck. Digging and hauling rocks like he's going to turn that wasteland into the Garden of Eden. It's sad, Frank, she replied, not looking up from her phone. Couldn't you have given him something better after 30 years? Business is business, dear. Dad was too soft on these people. That's why I've tripled our profits in 10 years. Meanwhile, Bill worked methodically, removing rocks and sorting them by size. The larger ones he used to build a crude wall around his property. The medium ones he arranged in careful piles. The smallest ones he examined closely before either keeping them or discarding them. Locals driving by began to notice. Some called him Crazy Bill. Others brought him water or stopped to chat. Sheriff Dawson pulled over one blazing afternoon, concerned. "Bill, it's 102 degrees out here. You trying to kill yourself?" Bill straightened his aching back. "Just making something of what I got, Sheriff." "What exactly are you making?" "This land won't grow anything." Harrington knew that when he gave it to you. Bill took a long drink from his canteen. "My daddy used to say, 'The man who knows the land doesn't fear it.' I've been watching this plot for 30 years, Sheriff. I know its secrets." The sheriff shook his head. "Well, don't die out here proving a point, Bill. Pride's a dangerous thing." "It's not pride," Bill replied. "It's patience." By September, curious changes were happening on Bill's rocky plot. He'd cleared nearly an acre of the largest surface rocks and dug several 6-foot-deep trenches. His sorting piles had grown, and he'd built a small lean-to shelter next to his RV, where he worked evenings with simple tools. Rumors started swirling in the small town. Some said the old ranch hand had lost his mind. Others whispered that he was looking for buried treasure. The coffee shop downtown had a running joke about Bill's big dig. One evening, Miguel and 2 other former colleagues visited, bringing beer and sandwiches. "Boss man says you're wasting your time," Miguel said, handing Bill a cold bottle. "Says nothing grows in this soil." Bill took a long swig. "He's right about that. Then why kill yourself out here, man? My cousin works construction in Billings. Says they need experienced hands." Bill led them to one of his trenches. "Take a look," he said, pointing down into the excavation. The men peered into the hole. The setting sun caught something in the rock wall, a glint of color, blues and greens dancing in the fading light. "What is that?" one of the men asked, squinting. Bill smiled. "That, boys, is why old Frank Harrington Sr. never developed this corner of his property, and why I never argued when Junior gave it to me. If you're rooting for Bill right now and want to see how this unfolds, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's prove that sometimes knowledge and patience win over greed." 2 weeks later, Frank Harrington was hosting a barbecue for potential investors when Sheriff Dawson's cruiser pulled into his circular driveway. "Frank, got a minute?" the sheriff asked, nodding politely to the guests in expensive casual wear. "Can it wait, Dawson?" "I'm in the middle of something here. It's about Bill Thompson's property. Thought you should know there's been some activity out there. Geological survey trucks, some folks from the state mining division." Frank frowned. "Mining division? What for?" Apparently, Bill filed some papers. The sheriff handed him a folded document. "Thought you might want to see this, being a neighbor and all." Frank scanned the document, his face gradually draining of color. This can't be right," he stammered. "State geologist confirmed it yesterday," Sheriff Dawson said. "That worthless plot you gave Bill sits on top of one of the largest opal deposits found in the continental U.S. in decades. Blue-green fire opals, mostly. Very rare, very valuable." Frank grabbed the sheriff's arm. "But that's my land. I just gave him the surface rights." Sheriff Dawson gently removed Frank's hand. "Actually, you gave him the deed, Frank. Full mineral rights included." I checked the paperwork myself. One of the investors approached, curious about the commotion. "Everything all right, Frank?" "Fine," Frank snapped. "Just a misunderstanding about property lines." But it wasn't fine. By the next morning, news had spread through town. Bill Thompson, the discarded ranch hand, was sitting on an estimated $4.2 million worth of fire opals, and preliminary surveys suggested the deposit extended much deeper than initially thought. Frank Harrington's truck skidded to a stop on Bill's property that afternoon, dust billowing around it. He stormed toward the RV where Bill sat calmly in a lawn chair. "You knew," Frank shouted, his face red with fury. "You knew what was under this land all along." Bill took off his reading glasses. "Morning, Frank. Don't morning Frank me. You tricked me into giving you this property." Bill chuckled. "How exactly did I trick you into giving me the worst piece of land on your ranch as a retirement gift? You must have known about the opals." "I did," Bill nodded. "Your father knew too." Frank stopped short. "What?" Bill reached into his RV and pulled out his old leather journal. "Your dad found the first samples back in '97. We were digging post holes and hit something unusual." He handed Frank a page of notes in his neat handwriting, with a small blue-green stone taped to the corner. "Dad knew about this?" Frank whispered, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. "He did. Had it tested in Billings. When he found out what it was worth, he made a decision." Bill looked Frank in the eye. He said, "Bill, this land's been in my family for generations. I don't want it turned into an open-pit mine. Let's keep this between us." Frank stared at the journal. "But why would he?" "Because some things are worth more than money, Frank. Your father understood that. This ranch, this valley, he loved it more than dollars." "Then why are you mining it now?" Frank demanded, finding his anger again. "I'm not," Bill said simply. "I filed the mineral rights to protect the deposit, not exploit it. I'm developing a small-scale, sustainable extraction plan with the state, limited environmental impact, and I'm hiring local people who need jobs." Frank looked around, noticing for the first time the careful way Bill had organized his excavation, the methodical sorting, the minimal disturbance to the landscape. "I'll buy it back," Frank said suddenly. "Name your price." Bill shook his head. "Not for sale, Frank. This is my retirement. But I'll tell you what. I need someone who knows ranching to help me manage this operation properly." He gestured to the land around them. "Your father would have wanted us to do this right." Frank stared at him, speechless. "Think about it," Bill said, returning to his chair. "Unlike some folks, I believe in fair compensation for 30 years of work. I'd love to know where our family is watching from today. Drop your name and your state or country in the comments. I always enjoy seeing how far these stories travel." 5 years later, the Thompson-Harrington Conservation Mine had become a model operation, featured in industry magazines for its minimal environmental impact and fair labor practices. The partnership had yielded not just profits, but healing. Frank Harrington Jr. had learned what his father knew all along, that the land held value beyond dollars and cents, and that the people who worked it deserved respect. Bill Thompson, now in his late 60s, had built a modest home overlooking the operation. Not a mansion, but a comfortable place where former ranch hands often gathered for cookouts and stories. The town had benefited too. The mine employed 27 local workers at above-average wages. A small museum displayed the finest specimens, bringing tourism to a place previously ignored. On cool evenings, Bill sometimes sat with Frank on the porch, looking out over the operation. "You know what your father told me once?" Bill said. He said, "The problem with people who only see dollar signs is they miss the real treasures right under their feet." Frank nodded, understanding at last. He was right about that. "He also said something else I never forgot," Bill continued. He said, "One day my boy will learn that true wealth isn't what you take from the land. It's what you learn from it." The sun set over the hills, catching the blue-green glints in the rock face. Not just valuable stones, but reminders that sometimes The things we dismiss as worthless contain the greatest value of all. True worth isn't found in a bank account. It's found in patience, knowledge, and respect for the land and for each other. Bill Thompson understood this all along, and eventually, so did Frank Harrington Jr. Some treasures are buried deep, waiting for the right person to discover them. Others are right before our eyes all along, if only we know how to look.